You are listening to the Pro-Black Perspective on KWAZ Radio. Welcome to the Pro-Black Perspective, where black problems are addressed with black solutions. Your host tonight is the author of the Pro-Black Compendium and Zuberi and the Maroons of Maa, the Pan-African Nationalist, Oni. Oni, what are we discussing tonight?
So today we're going to talk about police brutality, but we're going to do something radically different. We're going to talk about police brutality and how to solve our situation here and what we as a people need to do. A lot of times, a lot of stations are going to tell you, they're going to complain, they're going to say this happened, that happened, but I'm not interested in that per se. I'm interested in us getting out of that system of oppression. That's what I'm interested in. And I'm interested in promoting those policies and those programs to get us out. So we're going to start off with what I like to say is an allegory. Okay? Look at the Lion Kingdom. Alright? Look at the Lion Kingdom. What are the male lions doing? What are the female lions doing? Fundamentally, right? Every lion can hunt, let's say. From the time they're children to the time that they're grown adults, they can hunt. All right, they can go out and do things and keep themselves alive. But living in the community, they say to themselves, "Hey, outside of providing for myself, if you will, I'll also do some sort of community work." Right? And what we see in male lions, what we see in female lions, is what we consider or call gender roles. All right? The gender role of the male lion versus the gender role of the female lion. What we notice is that the male lion, like during a time of a hunt, for instance, if there's gazelle walking around, during the time of the hunt, the male lion is sitting back, chilling in the sun. Sitting back, chilling. Okay? The female lion, however, is out there running down the gazelle, biting the gazelle, chewing it, and notwithstanding that the male lion didn't do anything, she still tells the male lion, "Come, get your fill. Get your fill of the hunt." You understand? Part of the reason why they call this guy the king of the jungle is because he's treated like a king. But he also has kingly duties, because the reason why this female lion says, "Hey, look, I'll go hunt and you can still eat," is because she understands that when the hyenas come along, right, this male lion, he didn't waste any strength hunting down the gazelle. You see what I'm saying? And so he's at full strength to defend the carcass of the gazelle when the hyenas come along. You see? And so what you see in this gender role is this male lion being a protector, right? And this female lion being a healer, if you will. She is making sure that her community is fed, well taken care of, and he's making sure that his community is protected. Okay? So that right there is the context of the necessity of gender roles, or the roles of gender roles, if you will. And that takes us to our next segment, which is, imagine if the female lion said, "No, I'm not going to, the system is unjust." Let's say she says that. The system is unjust. I'm hunting. I'm doing all this work. You sitting on your butt. And you get not just food, but a lot of food. You know, you get probably the majority of the food. You know, and sure, you say that you protecting us. You know, you protecting. You know, you making sure the hyena don't steal our food. You making sure the hyena don't kill us, right? But no, if you want to eat, you should hunt just like the rest of us, right? Imagine they say that, right? And the lion says, okay, you know, he buys into that. Let's say the lion version of feminism, right? He buys into it. He's like, yeah, I'm sexist, I'm misogynist. Let me change my act. Let me hunt along with you. You know, let me chase down the gazelle with you, right? And he starts thinking in that individualist sense. You know, like I'll eat and I'll watch the kids. I'll make sure the kids are good and clean, and all that. Then what happens is that your community, as lions, right? You know, no longer has as strong a protection. Okay, it doesn't have a strong protection. And what you'll see when the lions are no longer as strongly protected are the gazelles and the hyenas walking around the lion population, mingling, if you will, without any sort of consequences, right? And not just without any sort of consequences, they're now able to influence the policies of these lions, you know, because you have the hyenas and the gazelles pretty much cohabiting with a group of lions. And in this cohabitation, you know, you have this cultural diffusion, if you will. You know, you have this influence over the lions and the lions' mentalities, right? And eventually, and remember, this is the allegory, right? So many things are going to happen that you might not necessarily see in the wild, because realistically speaking, the lions are not going to give up their gender roles regardless. Okay, and if they did, you know, as I pointed out, it'd be disastrous on them. But say that they do give up their gender roles, right? You'll eventually have hyenas and gazelles walking alongside lions and lionesses and setting their agenda for the lion community. Okay? Now, in that agenda, let's say, you're going to have the gazelles and the hyenas, you know, teaching lions to do differently. Okay, to do differently. So the gazelles, for instance, might be like, hey, you know what? Try veganism. You know? Gazelle would say to the lion, try veganism. You know, you don't really have to eat meat. You know, we could live peacefully. We could live together, you know, in harmony. You don't need to eat me, per se. You know, I haven't done you any wrong. Just eat vegetables. Now, of course, I'm not saying there's anything wrong with veganism. But, I mean, and I'm not saying there's anything right about it either. But the reality is that if you're a lion, you have a lion's anatomy. You know, you probably should, you know, eat the gazelle. You know? You know, this might not necessarily translate to us, you know, as humans, but for the example of the gazelle and the lion, you know, the more important thing isn't so much the veganism as much as the gazelle's not looking to him or herself be eaten, right? And of course the hyena is even more daring because, you know, lions don't really eat hyenas. But the lion would say something like, hey, you know, the hyena would say to the lion, let me watch over your family, okay? Let me impose my laws on your family. Or not even let me, more so, your men are weak, you know, there they are eating their vegan diets, there they are hunting alongside women, and they can't really fight us because they're never at full strength. right? Here's what's going to happen, right? Here are the laws. Here are the. We're going to look over your children. We're going to teach your children, right? We're going to teach your kids. How about we even protect you? We set up protection for you, all right? When they do this, right, you have this situation where hyenas walking around and gazelles walking around unmolested, doing whatever they can, right? And you'll end up having what is interspecies dating, you know? Because these hyenas are raising these lions, you know? These hyenas are protecting these lions, you know? And the lions are not what their foreparents were. They're not these strong, kingly beasts, but now they're kind of subservient to hyenas and gazelles. And in that way, when you have a weaker option, naturally, you're going to go for the, if you're individualistic minded, which is something that the hyenas would impose on these lions, right? If you're individualistically minded, you're probably going to go for the stronger mate, notwithstanding the physical incompatibilities, right? So you have this interspecies dating, right? And in that interspecies dating, you also get this hatred of what lions have become. You know what I'm saying? You're looking at lions and you're saying to yourself, this, you're saying this is disturbing, this is disgusting. They're even, dating. You're disgusted. You're dating outside of your species, but you're also disgusted that your species is dating outside of their species. And you're disgusted that these lions are weak and they're not doing enough for their own people. And you also say, you also don't remember what it is that lions are supposed to be, right? But that right there is like the crux of our issue, as black people, and I'm not saying you should blame the victim or blame the lion or blame like feminism for men being weak, because realistically speaking, the weakness of men preceded feminism in the general sense, although feminism is a really, really old idea, but the history of feminism and so forth can be discussed at another time. But what we're seeing is that the police brutality links back to the black community, particularly black men not being black protectors. Not having a gender role, okay? And of course the black community at large not supporting gender roles amongst black people. Subconsciously, we want black people to have these roles, okay? But it's not something that's being practiced, and it's not. We don't put our money where our mouth is. Not even the slightest. So, we have to crunch in these numbers, right? We have to look at what's the size of the police in America, right? And the largest police force in America is the New York City Police, right? And when you crunch in the numbers, right, of the New York City Police, and how many active members it has, it's roughly, let's say 51,000, right? And when you look at how many, let's say, white people there are in New York City, or just do all the math, right? Or just rounding and just to keep it simple, right? The New York City Police Department amounts to roughly, let's say, 1% of the white population in New York. Okay? So 1% of the white population in New York. And it's not entirely men, but, just roughly, let's say 50% of white people are men versus women. So let's just double it and say that 2% of white men in New York City are police officers, right? But that 2% of white people, right, are controlling 100% of black people. You see what I'm saying? And that's the real complaint that you're having about this police brutality, because it has nothing to do with the 98% of white people, or whatever, or of white men, or the 99% of white people, right? But it does have something to do with these 2%, and you allow it when you can't look at your own numbers and say to yourself, what percent of black men are protecting me? What percent of black men are protecting the black community? And insofar as police brutality is like a nationwide problem, so to speak, air quotes, right? We also have to look at this, the whole country is 0.3% of white folk are in the police department. Like nationwide, across the United States of America, right? So, and then, like I said, let's just round it and say, let's just say that it's all men, right? That's 0.6%. That's less than 1%. Less than 1% of white people are doing the black community dirty. Controlling 100% of the black community, instilling fear and imposing laws on 100% of the black community. But it's such a small number, right? And you say to yourself, like, if you were in New York, right? If 4% of black men said, "Hey, I'm going to commit myself to the protection of my people," 4%, right, of black men, that would make the largest policing force in America. You understand? So, and that's just playing with the numbers. But we have to say to ourselves, if this 4% were committed, we also got to say, how are we going to organize ourselves to finance not only that 4%, but 100% of our people? And the reality is that effort isn't manifest, because you can say what you want about white people, for the most part, and a lot of us will say, and some people will say, "Hey, that's not accurate. This is not accurate. It's not accurate." But we're gonna say it this way, and this is just roughly, right? The white people are 100% self-financed. Okay, and I mean, some people might say, "Hey, well, actually, we do a lot of their work," and yes, we do, at gunpoint. You know what I'm saying, or at the point of starvation. And the reality is, and of course, and I'm not saying that we're not necessary for their economy, because we are, and I have a full understanding of that. But what I'm saying is that you have to look at your community, you have to look at their community, you have to look at how they finance themselves and how we don't. And as long as we don't finance ourselves, but they do finance themselves, they'll have the upper hand in that exchange. So we have to look at, the reality, and we gotta say it like it is. Instead of trying to take credit, instead of saying, "Hey, you know what? They're not 100% self-financed. They rely on." You're not gonna get their work anyway, okay? And we gotta be realistic and stop and sure, there is that saying, "Give credit where credit is due." but it's not even something to brag about, really. You know, if your neighbor's house is really clean and your house is filthy, and your boast is, you know, I helped clean that house, you know, it's the wrong time. You know, frankly, you know, we shouldn't want to clean someone else's house, and it shouldn't be something. It shouldn't be something we're proud of. You know, not in the least, but we should be cleaning our own house. So just roughly saying, they're 100% self-financed, we're 0%, and that right there is the crux of this issue. You know, and a lot of you might be tuning, listening, and saying, "Hey, I thought we were talking about police brutality," and it's like, yes, you are talking about police brutality, but you're really talking about police brutality. You know, contrary to whatever everybody else is saying. You know, and so that really is the issue. You know, we have to look at gender roles. We have to look at financing our own, let's say our black men to really protect us again. You know, to be called upon to investigate the incidents in our community. You know, to discipline the people in our community, to do what we're supposed to be doing for ourselves. And then we also have to, support our women in their gender role of healing the community and what that means, what that can manifest into, you know. But as it stands, when we're talking about police brutality, what we're really talking about is the failure of black men, in particular, of protecting their communities, but also black people in general from organizing, for not organizing ourselves to have those kind of apparatus in our own community. We need these institutions of power. You know, this idea of, protecting yourself is something that it's something that we have to, systematically or through organization build up toward. And that's not happening unless we organize. Okay? And so, this whole question of police brutality, all the awful things that police overseers do, think back to the gazelle and the hyena and the lions. It's a situation of war, and it's a terrible situation that we're in, but we're not doing ourselves any favors by not organizing ourselves to do ourselves favors. With that, all I can say is, I have a book, Pro-Black Compendium. I have a book, Zuberi. These will be great tools for you, to really get insight and an understanding of the situation at hand, the situation of gender roles, the situation of organizing, the situation of Pan-Africanism, So I implore you to get those books. I have a Twitter at Onitaset, Onitaset. I have a Tumblr, Onitaset, and I have a WordPress, AfricanBloodSiblings.wordpress.com. Until next time, talk to you soon. Thank you for listening. I invite you to join hands with your brothers and sisters as we recite the African affirmation together. It's a call and response, so follow my lead. We are an African people, robbed from our homeland, robbed of our names, our languages, our cultures, our religions, our womanhood, our manhood, our sisterhood, our brotherhood, our motherhood, our fatherhood, our selfhood, our nationhood, and our self-respect. But we shall rise, never to fall again. Up, you mighty race, you can accomplish what you will. No justice, no peace. No justice, no peace. No justice, no peace.